Hey guys, David here. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired. I've been up and about all day today and it's really late, so I'm gonna go ahead and make this review kind of short, but I'm gonna try to hit all the major points of this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because that's what I'm going to be reviewing for you guys today. And this time we're going to be taking a look at episode 18 of season 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. entitled Providence. Of course, if you have not seen this episode or any of the ones before it, please don't watch this video because spoilers will follow. Good, we got that out of the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and just give my overall opinion about this episode without really walking through it because it wasn't as eventful and big and epic in terms of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as the past two episodes have been. Even though it has been doing such a good job of keeping that momentum that I've been praising the show to have discovered recently with its past few episodes, it definitely keeps that momentum, and there's no denying that. They keep the story moving along without treading back to the whole case of the week where, okay, now this week we're going to go to this place and investigate this, and now this next week, this next Tuesday, we're going to investigate something that's going on in China, that kind of thing. There's a really good chance that we're not going to see that kind of formula in the show anymore, considering the big twist that happened with Hydra being S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.H.I.E.L.D. practically being no more as of now. So it is interesting to see that from here on out, it is likely, very likely, and I'll get to why I'm saying likely in a moment, that from now on we're just going to see the story of S.H.I.E.L.D. progressing in a much more linear path rather than just having a case of the week every week. And this episode follows suit after the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the reveal of Hydra because, like Coulson repeatedly says in this episode, Hydra's up there, but you can't really call it a rise of Hydra because they haven't taken over everything. It's like the scale is out of balance, so there's no faction that is winning or losing, so it's kind of like a very heated war. And that's cool. It makes for some really tense and intriguing aspects to the show and to the story that is happening within the show. And I still love that we're seeing more Bill Paxton, more of what's going on with Ward and how Ward is practically not the character that we saw him throughout this entire show thus far. In fact, we don't even know if Ward is even his real name. There's moments in this episode where they kind of hint at the possibility of his name not even being Grant Ward at all, and it's mainly just a facade. And it truly was riveting to see more of Ward be the Hydra member rather than the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. And that scene where he's talking to Reyna, who returns in this episode, and I think it's kind of neat to kind of bring her back because she was part of that whole program, so it would only make sense. There were certain speculation, even after last week's episode, that maybe Garrett wasn't really the clairvoyant. Spoilers for Captain America the Winter Soldier. And maybe, just maybe, it'll be Toby Jones once again as Zola in the computer. I mean, even though that facility blew up in Winter Soldier, Zola could still be out there. I mean, he's a cybernetic, he's an AI. So he could still live through some form of computer software. I mean, when Black Widow plugged that thing in, which is today's technology, he came to life. So how can he for sure be dead even though they blew up that facility? He might still be out there and he might still be calling the shots. But this episode is actually going to go ahead and say that Garrett is actually the clairvoyant, or so to speak, clairvoyant, as not only Reyna, but by the end of the episode, Quinn find out he's a fraud. But real quick, going back to that scene where Ward is talking to Reyna about how he has been pretending this whole time to gain their trust, and he goes back to that episode where he jumped out of the plane to save Simmons when she was in danger, and the way he just says, hey, look, I've been acting this whole time, it just made me look at the character and go, you slimy son of a bitch. It was truly heart-wrenching to see that this character, who was becoming much more likable and a lot less boring than he was at the beginning of the season, turned out to be a bad guy. He's definitely no longer boring, and he will no longer be boring, and that's definitely something that we can't say for that character anymore. And he's still an intriguing character, but I do feel a sense of betrayal in me to see that this character was bad all along, even back then. Now, Bill Paxton's still doing a really good job as Garrett, and I definitely think that he could pull off being a great villain and a really good, formidable, antagonistic mirror self, so to speak, to Coulson. Like when I think about Coulson, when I think about Garrett, I kind of see the yin and yang going on there. I mean, after all, one is loyal to Shield while the other is loyal to Hydra, but it's almost like they're just like that guy that Von Strucker said in the end credit scene for Captain America: The Winter Soldier, two sides of the same coin. And I definitely see that kind of dynamic working between Coulson and Garrett, and I think that they did a good job at writing Garrett the way they did and giving them that really snappy and funny dialogue, while at the same time Bill Paxton's performance is just making me like the character despite him being a villain. The only little issue I have with them is buying him as the clairvoyant, because you know, I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that kind of wishes that the clairvoyant was Zola and the computer, but now knowing that it was actually Bill Paxton, Garrett, and I admire the fact that they go ahead and make the character say, "Yeah, I don't have any powers. I admit I'm a fraud," and that's totally Garrett's style to be saying it in that kind of form. But there's also a part of me that kind of feels like he would be a guy that wouldn't entitle himself to be a character very quote unquote mystical as the clairvoyant. I don't know. I just don't feel like it fits 100%. I think it's maybe something that after at least one more episode or maybe two episodes, I will sort of digest a little bit better. What I can't digest at the moment would be two particular characters. Triplet, who is now part of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. team. Despite being okay with the character, I feel like the actor's not doing such a good job with the material, because in almost every single scene, it's just him going, "Man, you know," well, he doesn't say "man" necessarily, but he just has that look on his face almost in every single scene that he's in. I really hope that that actor polishes his acting skills a little bit, because he's not terrible per se, but you kind of need to bring something to make that character interesting. But hey, that's kind of how we felt about Ward at the beginning, and look how he ended up being. So, who knows? Maybe after some time. What I find really hard to believe is the fact that Coulson said, "Nope, you're not getting on the plane," after the terrible sense of paranoia that everybody within the team is feeling after this whole thing with Hydra happened, especially in that scene where May asks for Coulson's gun, and you can just see it bouncing off of each other like, "Do you work for Hydra, or do you work for Hydra?" You know, you just don't know. But the fact that Coulson said, "No, you're not getting on the plane," and then Simmons just comes out of nowhere and says, "Yeah, I think you should be on the plane," and Coulson's like, "Oh, all right." It just felt too quick to me and kind of artificial. And I really like Patton Oswalt. I do enjoy seeing Patton Oswalt in movies. He's one of those likable actors that he can be in almost anything and he could play himself, and I still like him. But not as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, because this is S.H.I.E.L.D. So it made me feel like S.H.I.E.L.D. casted Patton Oswalt, not a character that was acting like Patton Oswalt, but they recruited Patton Oswalt himself. So I'm like, S.H.I.E.L.D. hired this guy? But what I liked about this episode is that they went ahead and planted certain seeds that could take this show in a very interesting direction. Now, it could be a little bit too much for the show to handle all at once, and hopefully they take it one step at a time, but they kind of weave it into, because for the first half of the episode, they were doing a really good job at hinting at things that are going to happen later on in the story while still keeping that linear path rather than doing a whole case of the week type of scenario. But later on, they started showing things and bringing back characters such as Quinn, and early in the episode, Reina herself, and that make me feel like maybe they might try to force the whole case of the week type of scenario for the show after episode without making it very sensical. There's that one line where Garrett is freeing all those prisoners from the fridge and he says, "This should keep Coulson busy." It sounded like he was foreshadowing the show going back to that formula, and I hope that's not the case. I hope that they're able to weave all these things together to keep that linear path that the show has been doing so far in the past 3 or so episodes, by bringing back little things like the fact that War needs to infiltrate this secret base known as Providence in order to be able to get the encryption code or whatever the hell from S.H.I.E.L.D, because she went ahead and used her skills in order to be able to override the hard drive, so that if anybody tries to hack it, it'll automatically kind of self-destruct. I thought that was very interesting, and that's definitely something that I want to see play out in the next episode, considering that Ward is becoming that parasite within that S.H.I.E.L.D base, so to speak. It's similar to what was sort of revealed in Captain America, so I thought that was a really nice parallel. And bringing back the Gravitonium at the end of the episode, that's very interesting, and maybe we'll actually see Graviton in future episodes back again. And there's also the fact that when Garrett had his shirt off, there's like a piece of metal on his abdomen. Maybe we'll find out what that's all about. So they definitely went ahead and put little things here and there that is keeping the show interesting, and I'm still on board with the show, and it's definitely one that I hope more people watch, because it's definitely found its place in not only in the Marvel universe but also in people's televisions on Tuesday nights. And I cannot forget Clark Gregg's performance in this episode, especially that scene where he's in the middle of nowhere in Canada in the snow, and they don't see anything, they don't see what these coordinates led them to, and Coulson in some ways breaks down, and you can see how passionate he is about S.H.I.E.L.D. And we've seen hints of how loyal he is to S.H.I.E.L.D. in previous episodes and even in previous Marvel movies, but it is here where you really get a sense of the character, and you really appreciate why they brought back this character. And it was in this scene that I feel like Clark Gregg is not going to be able to detach himself from this character. He is to this character like Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. There's not going to be anybody like him. Despite not being as strong of an episode as before, I still love that they're keeping the momentum intact and still introducing new and interesting things. But it did bring back that concern in me that they'll recede back to the whole case of the week formula for the show. But for now, I shouldn't really worry about that, and I'm going to go ahead and give episode 18, entitled Providence, an 8 out of 10. I still think that this is a very solid show, and I'm definitely on board to seeing what happens next. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Agents of Nothing. But I'm still on board to seeing whether or not Fitz will finally get out of the friend zone. See you guys next time.